Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer. Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
Our great friends at Puma Golf are proud to introduce the new Ignite Articulate golf shoe, taking cleated innovation to the next level, thanks to an all-new articulating outsole, midsole, and upper that is designed to flex with your foot and deliver the highest level of support. Built to meet the rigorous quality, aesthetic, and performance demands of the world's best golfers, the Ignite Articulate combines Puma's tour-validated technologies in a lightweight, extremely comfortable package with a modern athletic silhouette that can handle any swing from any lie in any season. Make your move now. The Ignite Articulate are available in-store and online in Australia, starting from just $250. For more information, visit cobragolf.com.au.
This is the 19th Tee podcast. Drew's with you for tonight's episode. Marshy back on assignment for work. The big fella is punching in the hours at the moment, but we push on without Marshy on the other side of the screen. But I'm sure he'll be tuning in the next day or so. Coming up on tonight's episode, you're going to hear from Sarah Jane Smith, the winner of the TPS Murray River in honour of Jared Lyle out at Cobram Barooga. A wonderful, wonderful performance. 5-shot winner, 4 rounds in the 60s, including a Sunday 65, if you don't mind, and wins 45k as well to add to the old skyrocket. So fantastic for Sarah. She's going to be on the show a little later, as I mentioned. A little quick recap of TPS Murray River. As I said, Sarah Jane Smith, the winner at 20 under par. She was 5 shots ahead of Andrew Martin and Shea Wolves-Cobb. Now, if that first name is important in the mix of things because he's now only 50 points behind David Micheluzzi in terms of the order of merit. Of course, Cameron Smith is still leading that. Largely irrelevant. So the players who are genuinely in contention for the order of merit, Micheluzzi, Martin, as I mentioned, Micheluzzi 565, Andrew Martin 511. Tom Power-Horan having a really good season so far, 342. Dean Lawson, Aaron Wilkin, and Hayden Barron round out the top 10. Names I didn't call out in there because they're already otherwise exempt. Cameron Smith, who leads the way. Minwoo Lee, Adam Scott, and Jason Scrivener. Andrew Martin, as I said, at 15 under par alongside Shea Wolves-Cobb. Matías Sanchez, well, he was in the final group from what I remember and didn't have his best round shooting, 71 even par. Min A. Yoon, well, her form continues absolutely superbly, finishing T5 alongside Nathan Barbieri and Ben Wharton at 11 under par. T8 for Scott Strange, Emma Talley of the US, Tom Power-Horan and Hayden Hopewell all rounding out at T8 at 10 under par. Some names to miss the cut as well that we obviously talk about quite a bit on this show in terms of having genuine talent. Josh Armstrong was one. Justin Warren didn't have his best round. David Micheluzzi missed the cut. He'll be bitterly disappointed with that after his opening round of 73. Austin Batista, Doug Klein, who I said was going to win the tournament. Plenty of names to miss the cut, unfortunately, for these players. Jordan Zunic, another one there. So a really good tournament down at Cobram Barooga, obviously in support of Jared Lyle and the Luke the Duck. There's so many of them out on course, which was fantastic to see. And I'm not sure how much they actually raised, but it'll be great to see a figure very shortly. Of course, all eyes now turn firmly to the Vic Open happening this week. Now, it's an important event in terms of the order of merit, 420,000 up for grabs. Dimi Papadakis is the reigning champion there, so he'll be hoping for another repeat performance, and there's big points on the line this week, so this could make or break a few seasons in terms of getting players into those card spots. Of course, then the other big ones being the New Zealand Open at the start of March, and then the New South Wales Open 400,000 at the middle of March as well. So those three events to look forward to. The Vic Open, 13th Beach this week on the Beach and Creek courses. To the US very quickly, play is suspended at present at time of recording at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Pebble looking quite nasty out there at the moment. Certainly plenty of wind flying around and making things difficult for the players. Justin Rose currently leading the way at 15 under. He's still got 9 holes to play. Denny McCarthy, Brendan Todd, and Peter Malnati all at 13 under. Peter Malnati's still got 9 holes to play. He's in the final group with Justin Rose. Denny McCarthy on an absolute heater, though. 3 holes to play, 7 under par. So he'll be looking to put a little bit of pressure on. In terms of the Aussies, not a great deal to report. Aaron Baddeley leads the way. He's done for the tournament. He finishes, currently at T40 at 5 under par. Greg Chalmers, the old snake charmer, at 1 over. He's got a couple of holes to play, and Jeff Ogilvy similarly 1 over with 8 holes to play. A few names to miss the cut along the way as well that we're not used to seeing miss the cut. Harrison Endicott, one of the Aussies, to unfortunately miss, and plenty of withdrawals after today's round, yesterday's round. So, not great to see those WDs on the scorecard. On the DP World Tour, a couple of, or one event happening right now over in Singapore, I believe on the G4D Tour, and then the DP World Tour, of course, it was the Ras Al Khaimah Championship over there in the UAE, and Daniel Gavins, well, it was made very hard work of it, but he gets the win at 17 under par. I mean, 2 in the water on the final hole, but manages to snake in a 28-footer to win, which is pretty phenomenal stuff for Daniel Gavins. In terms of other names, Adrian Maronk, the winner of the Aussie Open, finished at T4. My man, Adri now at T6, coming off a couple of good weeks for Adri, was in contention last week. In terms of the Australians, or claimed Australians anyway, Ryan Fox at T11 alongside David Law at 12 under par. And then not a great deal to report. Daniel Hillier, the Kiwi, at 42nd, T42, and then missing the cut. Plenty of players as I scroll through to check any big names. Guido Migliozzi, a name that jumps out immediately. Eddie Pepperell with 2 pretty average rounds, if I'm honest, for Eddie, but no Aussies to miss the cut there. So Marshy and I will be back next week, and then you're going to hear a series of pre-recorded interviews over the course of about 4 or 5 weeks. I'll be away in the US enjoying my honeymoon, so you'll hear some pre-recorded interviews. We've got Cassie Porter coming up. That is 100% locked. We've recorded it. We've just got to edit it. So that's locked. That's coming your way in a couple of weeks. And a wonderful interview that I'd really encourage everyone to listen to with a gentleman from the US. Jeremy is his name. He is Paired Up Golf. So if you want to follow him on Instagram or Twitter, Paired Up Golf, you can do so. He has traveled the US, all 50 states, playing municipal golf, so essentially owned by the local towns, public golf. And his whole MO was to pair up with people as per the name. So he literally booked a tee time, didn't know anyone, rocked up, found their stories, and has been retelling them on Instagram and taking some wonderful images and sharing all of that on social media. And he's got a book out. So that'll be coming your way in a little while. I'm hopefully going to try and catch up with Jeremy in Nashville when I'm over there. So that will be something to look forward to. But without any further ado, as I mentioned at the top of the show, let's get to Sarah Jane Smith. And I'm very pleased, as I mentioned at the top of the show, to be joined by the latest winner in a growing list of females to beat the men. And I think the saying goes, Sarah, you can maybe say it better than I can, but yeah, the girls, because they've come back in red hot form for 2023. Congratulations on your win at TPS Murray River, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Take us back now 24 hours yesterday, maybe a little bit more than 24 hours when that final putt went in. I mean, you were largely in control for most of the day. I dare say it was a 5-shot victory, but take us back 24 hours and the jubilation that happened on the 18th green there.
Yeah, it was pretty special. I mean, I didn't realize how close it got throughout the day because there wasn't any leaderboards. I think thankfully, look at them. But that where I sort of was in relation to Mateus, and but I didn't know how everybody else was going. So it was kind of one of the rules officials actually came over to me with 3 holes to go, and they said, "Do you want to know where you're at? Do you know where you're at?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he's like, "Do you want to know?" And I wasn't sure, and I was like, "Yeah, tell me." And at that point, I had 4 holes to go, so it was kind of good to know because 16 is a pretty tough par 3, long par 3. So it was kind of nice to just know that if I didn't do anything crazy, and then 17 and 18 weren't the hardest holes on the golf course. So I knew I could kind of not do anything stupid. I should be able to get in. But walking up 18, my husband and son, they came up to walk the last hole. A few friends of ours actually offered to mind our son so that Dwayne could come and watch the back 9, and he was like, no, I'm just gonna leave it. Like, she seems to be doing okay, I'll just leave her alone. But when I saw all hit at once, it was like I didn't cry, but I was like, concentrate.
But no, that was a very. I mean, it was an exciting time. I was just rewatching the video there while we were setting up of sort of the celebrations, and I mean, it is the word. It gets overused now in the golfing world, but perspective after you have a child. I mean, maybe can you talk to us about that? I mean, there's famous examples at the moment. You know, Rory coming back and having such a wonderful season, but I feel like it's all well and good for Rory to have perspective on it, but you know, for females, you're the ones who have to do all the work. So it must be extra special for you to have your family around you and your son there, particularly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's just changed everything for the better. And I think that was the hardest part about not playing well these last few years, is because I truly felt like it had nothing to do with him. Like, obviously, the time away was difficult. I'd never had time away from golf before. So having to have the time off, which wasn't crazy, it was 6 months, but I'd never had that kind of time. And then sort of work to come back. And then we had COVID. So that was another 6 months. So it was a lot of time away from competitive golf. And I just kind of lost everything that I had relied on in the past. So I was always like a pretty solid ball striker, and it kind of just went away and never came back. And it was just really difficult. And that was the hardest thing for me, because I felt like, as you look at it, it's like, well, she had a baby, like she's playing bad. And like, as to be expected was kind of like what I was hearing. And I just didn't feel like that was fair, not fair to Theo. And it's not how I felt. I felt better than I'd ever felt on the golf course. And like you said, it is kind of overused, but it does give you a perspective. And I'm fairly good at, getting over a bad round, or, letting it go. Or I'm not a crazy angry person or anything like that. So, but that when you pick him up at daycare after a round, like, he truly doesn't care. Like, he'll talk about like sayings in golf now. He's understanding like birdies and bogeys and eagles and things like that, but he doesn't care. Like, he just wants to go to the park or just play. So it's just happy to see you. So it really does, like, if you were going to maybe dwell on a bad round, it's instantly done when you pick him up. So I think that has made everything much more enjoyable.
You mentioned obviously a couple of tough years there, which we might circle back to in a little bit, but you also mentioned your ball striking. Well, it was certainly pretty bloody good over the last 4 days. I'm just looking back at your scorecard here, and I'm counting a total of 4 bogeys for 4 days of golf. It's pretty handy. I mean, there's not any time you go out and shoot 4 bogeys, you're probably not going to lose too many tournaments. I wouldn't have thought, Sarah.
Yeah, that's definitely not been the case in the last little bit. So I didn't know that. I read that somewhere yesterday, and I was like, oh, that's fun fact for me. That I had on Saturday was a 3-putt, so it was nothing to do with my ball striking again. So, I mean, it's incredible the change that's happened over the last 2 months. I started working with Grant Field, and we didn't seem to change anything like drastic, but in doing these small little things, everything's kind of changed. And he's focused heavily on my short game, which I've kind of not put a lot of work into over my entire career. I mean, obviously I do, but it's never been my full focus. I love hitting golf balls, and I love practicing on the driving range, and that's not really where you need to be most of the time. So he, the first like official lesson we had, he's like, well, we're going to the short game. And I was like, okay. And as it got my ball striking so much better that I didn't have to use it that much. But when I needed it, it came easy. So
How has sort of working with Grant changed things for you? Because I was reading a great article back by Martin Blake around your win and obviously recapping some of the stuff. But then he sort of talked about your work with Grant and the fact that obviously, you lost playing rights on the LPGA or full playing rights on the LPGA tour at the end of last year and things weren't going great in terms of your golf game. But it seemed like Grant really also not only helped your short game and your ball striking, but maybe, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but kind of maybe reinstilled the love for the game. I don't know, maybe take us through that.
yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of last year, I just wasn't really sure where I stood with golf. I still loved it and I knew I wanted to play. And I think maybe if it wasn't for Theo, maybe I would have stopped, but I knew I still wanted to play and I really wanted him to see me play well. And I just wasn't sure if it was like a foolish thing to, hang around. It's expensive and I have sponsors, but it doesn't cover nearly what it costs. And especially when you have like 3 or 4 years of losing money, it was sort of come down to like, do we want to sell the house to kind of keep playing? Like everything that we've worked towards is my whole career. Do we going to put that on the line to just give it a shot and not really change anything? So that was kind of like where we're at the end of the year. And then Grant, he was the trainee pro at Clounger when I was growing up. So I've known him since I was 12. And we kind of just sort of got back in touch and had a few conversations and then worked. I saw him at the Aussie Open. And then after I started hitting the ball better sort of straight away. And then when I got home to the coast, he was like, what do you want for next year? And I didn't really know what to say, like it's pretty hard to say, like I want to be better than I was, or, I want to be this on the money list or the world rankings, whatever it is, when you've come off like some of the worst golf of my life. And then I've also lost my status. So I wasn't even really sure what I wanted. And so in the first thing, he was like, well, I think, obviously the first goal is to, do some money qualifiers, get some status back. And I think he was kind of kind on me on the first time we spoke about it. And then as we kind of got going, he's like, you're the only one putting limitations on it. Like your age isn't an issue. Like you're as strong as you've ever been. Your ball speed is the same as it's ever been. There's no reason why you can't be better. And he said, like, honestly, when I was playing my best golf, my short game was always the thing that let me down. So he said, imagine if we can get your ball striking back to where it can be, but also improve part of your game that you've never had at a level that it needed to be. He's like, then you don't know what can happen. So, yeah, he's kind of just been feeling that into me that, like I can do whatever I sort of want to do still, not sort of, I think with the years that I'd had and then seeing the young girls come up, I was like, maybe I'm too old now.
I mean, it's a great point that I absolutely want to get to, but how does the win change things moving forward for 2023? Because I'm sure that you obviously, you mentioned that you had a sort of a plan there with Grant, but winning events and not only the financial benefit that comes with winning, but sort of the confidence that it gives you and everything. Like, how does it kind of change your plan maybe for what you were expecting out of this year?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gives me a lot more confidence. I mean, I knew what we were doing was right. I was seeing the results in practice and even at Rosebud, like I was making a lot of birdies. And so that was something that I hadn't been doing. I'd been sort of giving it, everything, like scrambling my butt off basically for 1 and 2 under. Even par was like the best. I was kind of floating around and wasn't seeing any sort of sign of much more. But then, like the first event I played back after really working with him in the off season, it was sort of instant sort of results. I was a little disappointed after Sunday because I kind of lost it a little bit, the feeling of what we were doing. And I spoke to Grant afterwards and he's like, you haven't been in that position in a long time. Like a good round on Sunday, I had a chance to win at Rosebud. And I haven't been in like the third last group in a long time. And he's like, you're going to feel different. And some of the old things that I was doing are going to creep back in. And he said, that's to be expected. And you've got to keep getting yourself in those positions to start to remember what that feels like and learn how to play with it. So, but going forward, I think it just gives me sort of confidence to know that we're going the right direction, and if I can play that same golf when I need to in the States, it can quite quickly turn the year around. I mean, if I can get into a Monday qualifier, have a good week, and then all of a sudden the reshuffle comes around and you're playing in everything again. So obviously it's easier said than done, but I did do it last year. Monday qualified early. I finished 30th, and that reshuffled me into all of the full field events, not the limited stuff. But yeah, it doesn't take. It's not like you have to win or anything to get back and playing week to week. So that's sort of the goal, is to try and play as much golf as I can. I'll be going between the Monday qualifiers and Epsom, and then. But I think this last week definitely just changes my vision, I guess, for the year, hopefully.
Well, I hope that you certainly can achieve everything that you want in the US as well, because it's certainly what we're hoping for. But I was going to ask you a question. You touched on it just a moment ago. The cohort of young female golfers that we have in this country is phenomenal. I'm not even going to name some because I'm going to forget people, but we offer, obviously we talk about Minjee Lee as, maybe the leading female player at the moment, and Hannah Green, etc. But there's so many young girls coming through the ranks at the moment that maybe people don't necessarily know their names just yet, but in a couple of years, people in the broader sporting world are absolutely going to know who they are. And me and Marshy are both in agreement on this podcast that the cohort of females coming through the pathway are so much better than the males at the moment. And that's so exciting for the game. And we think that that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, how do you kind of see it as someone who's played on the biggest stages in the world, to know that there are these amazing golfers from Australia coming through the ranks?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I think the men and women are pretty strong, but like you said, the women at the moment are just unbelievable. I played with Justice last week, and I mean, she's ready, like
she's not even a pro.
Thing, and she's just every time she goes out there, she's shooting 5-6 under, and it's just easy, cruises along. She doesn't go up or down, she just sort of does her thing, and she's comfortable. There's no sign of any nerves or anything like that. She's just happy to be out on the golf course and making birdies and kicking butt. So but she's just one of a long list of girls that are they're such strong players. Like, their swings are pure, they've had such great coaching and mentoring in Australia, and they're just ready to go as soon as they come out. So it's going to be it's going to be fun to see. I think in the last few years, especially on LPG, there hasn't been like a huge amount of Aussie girls. And I think like one point when I first came on tour, I think there might have been like 10 or 15 Aussie girls out there. And I think we're really close to having that same number again out there, which would be amazing.
The TPS series, which is, as Marshy points out to me, is like saying ATM machine, but I'll continue to do it. The TPS series is something that's been really exciting and a wonderful addition to the Aussie summer. And obviously, as soon as we come back from the Christmas break, we get such a wonderful run of events. I mean, there's been a lot made of men and women playing alongside each other, and I think anyone who sort of maybe says that men and women shouldn't be playing in the same field need to get into the reality of the 21st century. But how have you seen it coming out and playing against some of, Australia's hottest young talent in terms of both the men and the women competing all for the same trophy, same sort of prize pool? Like, how does that kind of maybe change the way you approach tournaments? What's your general thoughts on it?
I mean, it's been amazing. So Rosebud the week before last was the first time I'd played in one of the TPS events, and I mean, it was great. The other thing about golf, men's Australian golf, is they're all really nice people.
Yeah.
I looking like the nicest groups. I play with David Micheluzzi in like 3 of the events that I played. When I played with men, I played with him at the PGA, Australian PGA, when it was just a few women involved in the field. And he just couldn't be a nicer person. And then everyone I played with, I shouldn't name a few because then I'll miss them, but they've just been incredibly generous, and they're all gentlemen, and are very inclusive. I haven't met anyone that seemed like they were faking that they wanted us there, or as part of the same event. It's just been great. I think PGA and WPGA have done an amazing job at setting up the golf courses. I know there's definitely some holes where that looks like a huge advantage, but when you see what we're each hitting into the greens, then it makes sense. Like obviously it might be a bit off the tee, but we're both hitting, if it's a par 5, we're hitting 3 woods in, or sometimes the guys are even hitting less in. But I think, I think they've done an amazing job, and I think from what I've seen with the crowds and the response from it, I think it's been really well received, and it just adds a little extra to it. And then these events this year, with adding the juniors and the all abilities, has just added an extra element on the weekend, just for the young kids of Australia to come and play with the pros on the weekend and play for their own trophies as well is pretty cool.
You're absolutely right. And Mika, you were just mentioning, as listeners to this show would know, I caddied for him over here in the WA Open last year, and absolutely just one of the nicest dudes that you will ever meet, and so willing of his time with particularly this show from a very selfish perspective, and yeah, just a genuinely good dude. And I know that he'll listen, so good on him. Hey, the TPS, as we mentioned, obviously, this one. There's different names associated to it: Jeff Ogilvy, Jared Lyle, and Jan Stevenson. I'm going to miss them. Shouldn't name people, but I just wonder what winning this one that's in honor of Jared Lyle means. Because, and no disrespect to any of the others on the list there, but this one seems like it means a little more in a way. Jared was such a wonderful part of the Australian golfing fabric. So I'm just wondering if maybe this one means a little more just to have Jared's name attached to it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was he was such a fighter through his whole life, and the entire golf community was devastated when he lost his battle, but he didn't let anyone down with how hard he fought. I only got to meet him a few times in my amateur career. I think we played like the World Junior or World Amateur together in Puerto Rico, but he was just a genuinely really nice guy. And the charity aspect of this last event was huge. That challenge was everywhere, and Luke the Duck was literally on everybody's head. It was just a really cool sight to see. And I'm not sure if they had any figures of what they raised in the week, but I really think they must have done a really big effort that week. And it was an extra special one to win.
I think his hole-in-one at on the 16th at the Waste Management at Phoenix, I just think that is one of, we always talk about what's your favorite golfing highlight, and, people, Tigers chip in at the Masters and all these different ones, but I just genuinely think that is such an underrated highlight. It was just so amazing. Every time I go back and watch it, I'm like, this is so cool. And it couldn't have happened to a better person too. So, last question, we'll let you get out of here because I appreciate it's late and appreciate your time. How did you celebrate? That's normally the question that we started with, but how did you celebrate? I mean, I saw the champagne. It was sprayed all over you. They gave you the bottle, I think, for a mouthful. There was nothing in it by the time that you got to you. So how did you celebrate?
Well, I don't drink. And Emma said, I think there's some in there if you want. And there was in the bottom. And I thought, oh, why not? I should, right? Like, even though I don't drink. And I went to sip, and it was so far in the bottom, I didn't go far enough. And then I was like, oh, I'm not doing it again. But we wanted to get to Melbourne because we were picking my parents up this morning. So there's literally nothing between Cobram and Melbourne. Like the first McDonald's we hit was like 40 minutes in. So that was like the first food, and we were all starving. Like we hadn't had lunch or dinner or anything. So it was like, I think it was nearly like 11 o'clock at night. Some people must have been looking at us with Theo getting McDonald's. He was playing in the little McDonald's playground in the pit stop Macca. But I'm a sucker for a frozen Coke. So I got myself a big frozen Coke, big Slurpee. And that was the extent of it last night. But I spent a lot of time after we sort of got settled at the hotel on my phone. I had an amazing amount of messages to respond to. I was incredibly grateful for all the friendships that I had, because it was just it was really special at the end of the day. So that was a pretty cool way to celebrate.
Well, one of those probably was from us early this morning as well. So we thank you very much for answering it and agreeing to come on and have a chat to us. I know it's late over in Victoria. But thank you again for joining us. Congratulations on your win, and hopefully 2023 lives up to everything that you're hoping it does. And if you keep playing the way that you are, got absolutely no doubt that we'll see you back on the biggest stages in golf. So thanks very much for joining us once again, Sarah, and best of luck for 23.
Thank you. Thanks so much.